Lucy.
Hi, I'm Ben.
That's Lucy, and I'm Jen.
So we're going to talk about Bertrand Russell today for Philosophy Friday. Okay, Lucy, hear me.
Lucy knows nothing about Russell.
Yeah.
Clearly.
So, this is actually, the very first time I was ever on the Michael Brooks show. Before I was on in studio, I did a little patron thing, and we talked a little bit about Bertrand Russell there and that instance in a political context. But I'm going to talk about the philosophy aspect today. So I think one way, even though it's not the main thing we're going to talk about, one thing I thought would be a fun way of sort of entering into it would be by talking about Russell's paradox. So Gottlob Frege.
I'm sorry, what?
Gottlob Frege.
Bless you.
Gottlob Frege was a German philosopher, logician, mathematician, and he was concerned with trying to explain all of mathematics in terms of logic and set theory, which he sort of thought of as part of logic. So set theory is the branch of mathematics where you're interested in collections of objects, the set of all the schnauzers in the world. Lucy is a member of the set of all schnauzers.
Hedwig
is a member of the set of all schnauzers. The set of all schnauzers is a subset of the set of all animals, stuff like that. So Frege was had written this book where he does this like grand project to try and explain all of mathematics in terms of logic and set theory. And then when the book was already at the printer, was ready to go, in fact, I think they'd already started to print up some copies, Frege got a letter from his friend from England, Bertrand Russell, who said, "Hey, I was just thinking about the stuff you sent me, and a problem occurred to me." And the problem was a pretty big one, because there was something, one of the principles that Frege was using was something called Basic Law 5, and what that is exactly doesn't really matter that much for us right now, but one of the things it entails is that for every description, there's a set of all and only the things that match that description. So for the set of all for the description being a cat, there's the set of all cats. For the description being a dog, there's the set of all dogs. For the description being a set, there's the set of all sets. And Russell sent a letter, "Hey, it occurs to me, what about the set of all the sets that aren't members of themselves? Because some sets are members themselves. The set of all sets is a member itself. Since it's a set, some sets are not members of themselves. The set of all cats is not a cat. So it's not a member of itself." And Russell says, what about the set of all sets that aren't members of themselves? Because if it is a member of itself, it is not. If it is not a member of itself, it is. And oftentimes people first hear this, that just sounds like a sea of words. So there are a couple of analogies that could be helpful in trying to think about what's going on here. So one of them is
Before you get into that,
Yeah.
I would like to say that I don't think Ben uses beard oil. He has some, but I don't believe he uses it.
Not regularly. So yeah, one of them is the barber paradox, which I think Russell said, like, the librarian at Oxford suggested to him in conversation when they were talking about this. So the barber paradox is a paradox about a town where all the barber shaves all of the men in the town who don't shave themselves. And to stop this from being too easy to solve, the barber is a man and he lives in the town. So the obvious question is,
does the barber shave himself?
If yes, then he is not a man in the town who doesn't shave himself. And because the barber shaves all and only the men in town who don't shave themselves, he must not be shaved by the barber. So if yes, then no. But wait, if no, then he is a man in the town who doesn't shave himself. So he is shaved by the barber, because the barber shaves all and only the men in the town who don't shave themselves. So if no, then yes. If yes, then no. If no, then yes. It's a paradox. And another analogy, this is from a paper in the 1970s by somebody whose name I always mispronounce, so I'm not going to try. Now it starts with CHI, and then I'm not sure. But it's a very 1970s kind of example. It's the Secretaries Liberation Club paradox. So there are a bunch of secretaries who work for clubs that don't let the secretary join the club. Outraged by the injustice, these secretaries get together, they form their own club, the Secretaries Liberation Club. And the membership rules of the Secretaries Liberation Club are very simple. You're eligible to join the club if and only if you're a secretary who works for a club, who won't let the secretary join the club. Inevitably, there are so many secretaries who join the Secretaries Liberation Club that just to keep track of all paperwork, they have to hire a secretary of their own. And then
secretaries everywhere.
she applies to join the club. So the question is she eligible? What do you think?
I think I have no idea. Because if yes, then no, and if no, then yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So how am I supposed to know?
Yeah, if she is eligible, then she's not a secretary who works for a club who won't let the secretary join the club, and she's not eligible. If we're assuming she doesn't work for any other clubs, if she is not allowed to join, then she is a secretary who works for a club who won't let the secretary join the club, and therefore she is eligible. So if, like Jenn said, if yes, then no. If no, then yes. And all right. So you could have a club that had these membership rules and ran into this problem, and any decision they make would break the rules. This would be an unenforceable rule. Same deal with the barber. You could have a town.
It's an unenforceable barber.
Yeah. Well, you could imagine a barber shop where there's a sign in the window saying, the barber shaves all and only the men in the town who don't shave themselves.
I would prefer that the sign say unenforceable barber.
Well, maybe that's like what the city would do, condemning it, unenforceable barber, do not enter. So, because if the city didn't do that, then even if all the other men in the town played along, when it came time to try to shave or not shave, then he'd have to do both at the same time, and good luck with that. And we haven't even gotten into what beard oils he uses. Just the basic issue of shaving, seems to be a unsolvable problem.
Yeah.
So in the set case, the conclusion most set theorists took from this is, well, you can't have a set of all sets that aren't members themselves, which means it can't be true. That that for every description, there's a set of all and only the objects that match that description. So you kind of have to go back to the drawing board to figure out what sets there are, and subsequent versions of set theory are very changed by this. So,
Ben and I are both fans of his beard.
Fair enough. So, yeah, Bertrand Russell, who did not have a beard, but he had a lot else going for him.
He should have had a beard.
No, he
covered some of that face up. Just saying.
I mean, you know the way that Andy drew him. He said he was kind of doing zombie Russell, for the.
Yeah, but that's an improvement.
Wow.
Like, way back in the day when people would paint portraits of the royalty, they didn't paint them honestly.
Fair enough. So, speaking of Frege.
Of who?
Frege. Gottlob Frege.
Bless you.
Yeah. Pretty sure that's how you pronounce that, right? Gottlob Frege.
If you need to barf, aim it that way.
He had... So Frege was also concerned about thinking about how language works, and he introduced this thing called Frege's puzzle to thinking about names and descriptions and stuff, which goes like this. It's a very natural thought. This gets us into the actual philosophy of language part, to think that the meaning of any word comes from whatever it refers to.
Bottle.
Microphone. We could do this all day.
Husband.
Wife. So, and even when you have complicated sentences, like the husband drinks Oberon beer or whatever, say, well, the husband gets meaning by referring to me, and beer, Oberon beer, gets meaning from referring to this, and drinks, I don't know, maybe it gets its meaning from referring to the property of drinking, and this, and maybe you can think that you can put it all together on that. But Frege points out a problem, that it doesn't seem like language gets all of its meaning from what the words refer to. Because if it did, we wouldn't be able to explain why, for example, if the Joker has just escaped from Arkham Asylum and he's reunited with some of his...
Yeah, I think you're confusing this with the ethical theories video we did earlier.
Yeah. Just so, well, piling on that, right? So, we're doing something for a video for our ethics classes about... why doesn't Batman kill the Joker? It seems like on utilitarian grounds, there's good reason to say he should save all of the Joker's future victims. If you're a Kantian, maybe not.
So we're going with the Batman theme.
Yeah,
I like it.
Sticking with the Batman thing.
I like it.
So the Joker and his henchmen are hanging out, planning some mayhem. And one of his henchmen runs up to him and says, "Boss, I've got news. I just discovered something you're gonna want to know. Batman is Bruce Wayne." Now that is information that the Joker will be happy to have. On the other hand, if the same henchman runs up to him and says, "Boss, I just found something out. Batman is Batman."
Wait.
That would not be the reaction.
No. It would not.
Joker would probably be very upset.
Probably kill that guy.
Probably kill the henchman for wasting his time with tautologies. Because Batman is totally uninformative. It's true by definition. It can't be false, and it conveys no new information. Whereas Batman as Bruce Wayne is extremely informative and conveys information that the Joker is doubtless very happy to have. So, this is a problem if you think that, if you have that referential theory of meaning, you think that words always get their meaning from all of their meaning from whatever they refer to, because if Batman refers to that individual and Bruce Wayne refers to that individual, then Batman as Batman should mean exactly the same thing as Batman as Bruce Wayne, but
it doesn't.
Clearly.
But it does. But it doesn't. If yes, then no. If no, then yes.
Yeah, something like that. It's a puzzle. Right? It's puzzling. How it is that it seems like
the puzzle is puzzling.
Yeah, right. It's just going to get like more profound from here, guys. Here, the puzzle is puzzling.
It seems like in both cases we are saying something like A equals A, but A equals A is not informative, but A and B, A equals B. So saying A equals B is the same as saying A equals A, but one is good and one is not.
Yeah, one is informative in a way that the other
That's what I meant by good.
Yeah. Yeah, it is good for the giving of information.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how could this be that if so shouldn't these sentences mean the same thing? But if they mean the same thing, how can one of them be true by definition and totally uninformative, and the other one be something that happens to be true but is extremely informative? So that's Frege's puzzle. That's one problem. Another problem is a problem of negative existentials, which is a fancy way of saying there are sentences that it seems like we understand perfectly well what they mean, and
they seem meaningful.
Yeah, and in fact, they might seem true, such as, for example, the Easter Bunny does not exist.
What?
I know we're always going to have to have this talk someday. So,
and you chose now?
So,
thanks, Ben.
If words get their meaning from whatever they refer to, the Easter Bunny does not exist should be meaning. If there is in fact no Easter Bunny,
there's nothing for the Easter Bunny to refer to. Yeah. But yet we know what we mean when we say the Easter Bunny.
Yeah. So, in fact, we think not only that that's a meaningful sentence, but I think that it's a true sentence. But wait a second, if it's true, then it's not quite if it's true, it's false. But it's like if it's true, that it seems like it should be meaningless, at least on the assumption that words get their meaning from what they refer to. So if it's meaningless, how could it be true? So that's one thing. Another thing is a problem of intersubstitutivity. So this is, by the way, this is a very popular kind of like students first learning about this stuff often really like this idea that it's like, oh, it is referring to something. It's referring to like an abstract idea, like an idea in my head. So Quine has a classic paper called On What There Is, where he's objecting to this move, and he has like different characters called like Mr. X and Y Man and stuff like that.
Why though?
I don't remember.
It's my favorite meme, the little bishop dude who says, "Why though?"
I don't remember whether it was Y Man or Mr. X or if there was a Z character, but one of them. One of them tries to suggest that oh, well, it's okay. I can make sense of saying Pegasus doesn't exist, even if everything has to refer to something to be meaningful, because Pegasus refers to like my mental image of Pegasus.
When we say Pegasus, we all think the same thing, more or less. We think of a horse that has wings and can fly, as depicted in the 90s Hercules movie, which was fantastic and is one of my favorites.
Fair enough. So, but Quine says we wouldn't think that the image you have in your head of the Parthenon is what we're referring to when we say the Parthenon. Yeah. Like when we say the Parthenon exists, right? We're not making any statement about the image that you have in your head or, the concept of the Parthenon or anything like that. We mean the Parthenon, the actual structure.
So when we say the Parthenon, we mean the Parthenon.
Yeah, I told you it was going to be a very deep statement in this one. So, So if when we say the Parthenon, we're not talking about the abstract concept of the Parthenon. We're not talking about the idea in your head of the Parthenon. Then how is it that when we say Pegasus, we're talking about we're referring to an abstract concept or idea? That doesn't seem quite right. That's
But can't some words refer to things in the world, and some words refer to abstract ideas in our minds?
yeah, for sure, but.
Why wouldn't that be possible?
No, I think that's totally. I mean, that's not only possible but true. That some words refer to, the word thought, right? Refers to thoughts in our minds. And yeah. If anybody's watching this is really into philosophy of mind,
I was just about to throw that out there, but I won't.
The thought isn't in your mind. It's like, yeah, you know what I mean. So,
a thought is actually your neurons firing.
Right, or whatever it is that you people believe. Not, don't care. That's not the point here. Maybe I care if we're having a discussion about that, but for our purposes today, I don't care.
That doesn't care.
So yeah, for sure, there are some words that refer to thoughts in your mind, but if somebody if somebody says Pegasus exists, is their use of the word Pegasus referring to the thought in their mind? That seems weird. Like it seems like they're saying something totally meaningful. It's just false, but they certainly don't take themselves to be talking about a thought. They take themselves to be talking about Pegasus. And it seems really weird to say that whether you're talking like when I say the Parthenon exists, that if I were wrong, I were just having a hallucination whenever I read about the Parthenon, that would mean that my sentence didn't refer, like my sentence that I thought was about a thing in the world is really about a thought in my mind. That seems a little weird. So
yeah, and it seems a little weird if you say something like Pegasus is a winged horse, and that when you say Pegasus there, it means an abstract idea, but Pegasus doesn't exist. When you say Pegasus there, you're referring to something that could be out in the world. So that I think seems odd.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So that's the reason to think it's a problem to make sense. Again, if you think that these phrases get their meaning, names, descriptions, whatever, get their meaning from the things they refer to think that's why it's a problem to think that sentences like Pegasus doesn't exist, that they could be meaningful and true, because it seems like if they're true, there's nothing there for it to refer to. At least if somebody's intention isn't to deny the existence of the thought in your head, it's to deny the existence of the actual horse flying around, with having adventures, whatnot. I don't know.
Like in Hercules,
Right.
The 90s movie. You should all watch it. You could do that on a movie night thing.
Could. So
I would definitely join you for a
Hercules
discussion of Hercules.
discussion.
Yeah.
So another problem is a problem of intersubstitutivity, which
Say that again.
Intersubstitutivity. Okay. Which basically that there are things that people believe that they would not believe if you substituted for the relevant phrase some other relevant phrase that referred to exactly the same thing. So it's the same kind of idea as the Batman Joker. It's just a slightly different way of getting at the problem. So, like, if I don't know.
Let's say that I say the masked man comes to visit me every night.
Right.
Not for some sort of nefarious purpose.
Yeah, or he just like stands outside or whatever.
That sounds nefarious.
That does sound nefarious. Whatever. But but I see that masked man every day. Right? You say
yes.
that.
Okay. I see that masked man every day.
That is a sentence you believe is true. But you do not believe that you see your long lost brother every day.
That's why he's long lost.
Right? If you did, he wouldn't be long lost.
Mm-hmm.
So
he would be found.
Exactly. So
he would be short found.
But plot twist, as I'm sure you expect, the masked man is her long lost brother. So it sounds like a plot twist from the soap opera that Bender watches on Futurama.
Or just any soap opera, really.
But,
I'm not bashing soap operas either.
So given the assumption, so if Jenn does not know that the masked man is her long lost brother, then she believes that the masked man, she sees the masked man every day. She does not believe that she sees her long lost brother every day, even though by hypothesis the masked man is her long lost brother. So how can we explain what's going on in all four of these cases? Or actually, those are three. We could also do. There's an example that Russell argued with a philosopher named Meinong about, where you have the sentence, "The present king of France is bald." And I think, okay, is that sentence true or false or what? Why is that a problem?
There is no present king of France.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, there are a couple people that think they're the present king of France, but
sure,
they're not.
Sure. Yeah. By the time that Bertrand Russell was writing, there had been, for a long time, there had been no kings in France. There actually, I remember that last year, there was like a statue of one of the Louis the 16th.
One of the Louis.
Yeah, well, there were a lot of Louis. But there was a King Louis statue in New Orleans, I think, that was defaced or knocked down or removed or something. And there were actually two different people on Twitter who each had a claim to be the heir to the royal house of France, who were expressing their outrage and indignation on behalf of Sacre Bleu. So yes, but not in that sense, but in the sense of somebody who's actually has the legal office of the King of France and is exercising it. There is no present King of France. So some people thought that this means that this sentence is just neither true nor false, which would be a problem just in terms of logic. One of the assumptions that we make is that those are the options. It would, or maybe that the sentence is just meaningless or whatever. But Russell didn't think so. Russell thought it was just false. How could that be? Because after all, if the present king, it's not true the present king of France is bald. Does that mean the present king of France is not bald? Because that sounds equal.
The mind boggles.
I mean, that sounds equally wrong. Russell's solution to all of these problems was to introduce his theory of definite description. So definite description is just a phrase like the masked man who comes to visit, or the present king of France, or anything like this that's supposed to pick out one individual, and Russell says that these don't actually get their meaning from whatever they refer to, that they have their meaning separate from that his analysis of what's going on with a sentence whose subject is the whatever, is that the real subject isn't some individual that's identified that way. The real subject is, now this is where it gets really deep.
Oh boy. I need to fortify myself.
Everything. The real subject is everything that exists. All right. That sounds wacky. Here's how it works.
Now I really need to fortify myself.
There's a way of explaining this with predicate logic, but we're on YouTube. We're not going to do predicate logic.
But it's so much fun. I miss teaching logic.
Fair enough. Definitely the best logic teacher that I know.
Oh.
But also, we don't have like a whiteboard here. I don't know how we're going to communicate all the symbols and stuff. So just the quick and dirty verbal version.
So there's this backwards E.
Good luck with this, baby. Yeah. So, all right. So it's the real subject is everything that exists. And what you're saying when you have a sentence where the grammatical subject is the definite description is for example, if it's the present, your sentence is the present king of France exists. Says, well, you're not like referring to the present king of France and making the statement that he has the property of existing or whatever. What you're doing is you're referring to everything that exists, and you're saying out of all the things that exist, there is one of them that has this property being the present king of France.
And there is no more than one of them.
Right. There's one and only one that has this property. And so Russell says, when you say the present king of France is bald, what you're saying is, out of all the things that exist, there is one of them, and only one, that A is the present king of France, and B is bald. And of course, since
now you write this, you have some parentheses, and you got the backwards E, and then the X, and no, I'm not going any further with that.
Yeah. Right. So whereas there are lots of things that exist that are bald, none of them are the present king of France, because there is nothing that's the present king of France, so the sentence is just false. That doesn't mean the present king of France is not bald, because what it means to say the present king of France is not bald is that out of all the things that exist, there's one and only one that's A, the present king of France, and B isn't bald. And whereas there are lots of things that aren't bald, none of them are the present king of France, so that one gets to be false too. All right. Thank you. So,
my brother.
So, oh man, yes, the Cal Melchmel 999, the masked man.
Call me Ishmael.
There we go. That makes more sense. Then Cal Melchmel. Call Melchmel. Yeah, that's how the.
That's made my day right there.
That's how the book starts, right? Call Melchmel. So,
exactly.
So, and then working back, problem with substitution, no problem, because Jenn believes that out of all the things that exist, there is one and only one who is a masked man, and she sees every day. But she does not believe that there's one who is her long-lost brother and that she sees every day. Same deal for our problem about saying like the Easter Bunny does not exist, because out of all the things that exist, zero of them are the Easter Bunny. That would be Russell's analysis of what that sentence means. Put it aside whether that's true or false. And
we're not even going to get into Nessie, all right? Because we're going to throw down if it comes to that.
Yeah. So,
there will be fisticuffs up in this piece.
Yeah. So, yeah, I feel like that's something that's going to get clipped and put on Twitter to call Mel Schmegel. So, anyway.
Twitter bros, get on it. And I don't even know what's going on anymore.
Same deal with Frege's puzzle, that if you say the masked man is Jenn's long lost brother, informative, the masked man is Jenn's is the masked man is the masked man, uninformative. We could explain that because we do the Russell analysis and say out of all the things that exist, there is exactly one who is the masked man, and that one is the masked man. True by definition. Out of all the things that exist, there's exactly one who is the who is the masked man, and he is Jenn's long lost brother. Now that's a plot twist. So
I like plot twists.
We have explained,
and also that is all you know and all you need to know.
All right. So that oh yeah, here we go. There's a Simpsons for that.
What else is new?
I'll show you the clip later.
No, that's all right.
No, I will. It's okay. It's okay. It's fine. It's fine. I'm happy to. So
don't let me impose on you.
No. Please don't worry. It's really no problem. So all that is fine, but wait. When we did the original version of Frege's puzzle, we didn't do it with definite descriptions. We did it with names. Batman.
There's just a plot twist around every corner.
I know, there are twists and twists, twists within twists. We did it with names, Batman, Bruce Wayne, and all of these things you can do with names. In fact, some of them we did when we were explaining them. Instead of the Easter Bunny, sort of sounds like a definite description, but Pegasus is just a name. So if you say Pegasus does not exist, you got your negative existentials problem. You can have Saul Kripke, who we'll talk about in just a moment, has a version of the intersubstitutivity problem. It's the Londres paradox. Londres, the Londres problem. So it's the Pierre paradox. So
is this the guy that believes London is okay?
So Pierre is a Frenchman who has read, who's seen pictures of London in books, and these pictures look very pretty, and he forms the belief that Londres est joli. Yeah, I know my French accent is awesome. You can compliment me later. So,
years of Duolingo, and this is where we are.
So, it used to be so much worse. Yeah, I'm butchering the pronunciation. That's the joke.
Well, just hang on.
He forms the belief, right? Since these books are in French, so London is in Londres. So it forms the belief that Londres est joli, but
which means
London is pretty. And then he later in his life, he does some traveling. He learns English. And during his traveling, he spends some time in London, and he thinks London is the ugliest city he's ever seen. He can't stand it because he's, the things he sees aren't the same as the pictures, whatever. So he believes that Londres is pretty, but he does not believe that London is pretty because he doesn't realize that Londres that he read about in the book is the same city as London. Improbable, but go with us. And so
don't be those intro students. Well, how is someone not gonna realize? No, don't. That sounds more like an old person.
The voice sounded like an old person, but the content was very interesting. It's like, I'm sure there's some way that you could get the people off the track before you had to pull the lever or not. Don't be that guy.
I would have never let the guy in my house in the first place, so I could just tell the inquiring murderer no.
Yeah, right, exactly. So if the meaning of the name, even though it's a proper name, London, comes from what it refers to, then these two, these are the same belief, right? London is pretty and Londres is pretty. So how could he have one and not have the other? It's a variation, but it's a version of the same kind of problem. So Russell could solve all of this, and he does to his own satisfaction, although maybe it shouldn't be to yours, since we're going to end with some problems, by saying that proper names are really just shorthands for definite descriptions. So when you use a proper name, the meaning of that comes from whatever description you have in mind when you use it. So, this is probably most plausible if you think about cases where there's really only one thing that you know about someone. Probably the only thing you know about Homer is that he wrote the Iliad. And the Odyssey. So you say, when you say Homer, you just mean the author of the Iliad and the Odyssey, and that's what you mean when you say it. And then we can solve it. We can solve all of the versions of these things for names, because when you say Batman, that's a shorthand for some description, like
the guy who dresses up like a bat and drives a really cool car.
Right. And when you say Bruce Wayne, that's a shorthand for some description like
the very handsome billionaire.
Right. So if you say the handsome billionaire is the man who dresses up like a bat and drives around in the Batmobile, that's informative, whereas the man who dresses like a bat is the man who dresses like a bat is uninformative. And you can do these versions of it for all of these, right? Because we can just plug in Russell's solutions to the description versions of the puzzles for the name versions, and there we go. Problem solved.
There we go. See y'all later.
Plot twist.
Oh no.
Last one. So Kripke, who we've already mentioned, has many objections to this theory. It's a very famous book that's a transcribed lecture called Naming and Necessity, where he goes through all these. But for example, one of the ones that he points out is that it seems like, sticking with Homer, if you say it is true that Homer wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey, but it could have been false. It could have been false that Homer wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey, which makes perfect. I mean, Homer could have
written the Schmiliad and the Schmodyssey.
Right, or he could have just gotten sick as a kid and died. Died before he'd written anything. Right, so then
he could have gone to prison and encountered somebody with a shiv.
Right. Do they have prisons and?
They must have, or dungeons at least.
Okay, all right.
They had to put people away somewhere.
All right, so he went to dungeon and encountered someone with a shiv before he had a chance to compose any epic poems whatsoever. That seems like something that could have happened. But it could have been true that the author of the Iliad and the Odyssey did not write the Iliad and the Odyssey. It doesn't seem to make sense.
Wait, I'm sorry, what did you just say?
Okay, if the sentence is Homer did not write the Iliad and the Odyssey, that seems like something that could have been true.
Right.
If the sentence is the person who wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey did not write the Iliad and the Odyssey, then that doesn't seem to make sense in the same way. Another one of his examples, which is timely because I remember it's a book that I think just came out about the Austrian logician Kurt Gödel.
Oh man, that's on the top of my to read list.
Yeah. So
it's probably on the top of Kathy's to read list.
It might be. I read the review. I'd read that book.
That's one of us.
So, as Kripke points out, or paraphrasing a little bit, if you go out and interview stop 1,000 people on the street and ask them what they know about Kurt Gödel, probably 990 of them will say who. But if there are 10 of them who,
sorry, Kathy, sorry to break it to you.
Out of the ones who do know something about him, at least if we're conducting the study before this book comes out and everybody knows all about him, then at least 9 of them, of the 10 who have heard of him, will know exactly one thing about him, which is that he was the discoverer of something called the incompleteness theorem. That's what Gödel is most known for. So if Russell's theory of proper names are just shorthands for definite descriptions is true, then what people mean when they make sentences about Gödel is the discoverer of the incompleteness theorem. That's what Kurt Gödel stands for when most people use that name. So, but then Kripke says, what about the sentence or the following claim that Gödel didn't really discover the incompleteness theorem? Really,
Wait, you said there wouldn't be any more plot twists.
Okay,
that seems like a major
plot twist. There are going to be more plot twists. See, that's the plot twist. It's a meta twist. I told you today was going to be deep. So
this is how it is around here.
Yeah. Yeah. Usually there aren't so many plot twists. There's just Jen saying things and me saying like which scenes in The Simpsons that remind me of, and making her watch the clips.
So in this scenario, I may not have it entirely correctly, but fine, you tell it.
So just
tell it.
Well, let me just finish up the twist. So the twist was the claim is, and we're not actually saying this is true, but we're just considering this claim. Gödel did not really discover the incompleteness theorem. Really, he plagiarized it from someone named Schmidt.
That's what I was just about to say.
Oh, never mind. Okay.
No, just go ahead. You already started. Go ahead.
No,
go ahead.
That's all you.
So he so how did it work? He found it like Schmidt was dead or something, and he came across it in Schmidt's papers.
Yeah, there we go.
And claimed it for himself.
Right.
So A does no longer equal A here, or A does no longer equal B, or whatever letters we're using. Something does no longer equal something that we thought it did. Well,
let's think about it this way. Let's assume that this is true. That Gödel.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, we are slanderously assuming that it's true that Gödel.
Is this what's in the new book?
Ooh, that would be exciting. That Gödel really plagiarized the incompleteness theorem from Schmidt. Assuming that that's true, when people say Gödel discovered the incompleteness theorem, well, normally we would say on this hypothesis that is a false statement about Gödel. Mm-hmm. That we are giving Gödel credit for something he didn't do. We are talking about him, but we are speaking falsely.
But if what we mean when we say Gödel is the person who discovered the incompleteness theorem,
then this is a true statement about Schmidt.
Mm-hmm.
When we say Gödel discovered the incompleteness theorem, what we mean is the discoverer of the incompleteness theorem is
the discoverer of the incompleteness theorem. So, duh.
Right.
So that is a true statement, even though under this scenario, saying Gödel discovered the incompleteness theorem is false.
Yeah. So,
yeah, can we talk about Gal Gadot instead?
If you like.
Be more fun for everybody.
Sure.
As long as we had photos. Anyway, where are we going with this?
So this and the other one that we mentioned about possibility sentences that are true but seem like they could have been false. These both seem like big problems for Russell's theory of names. And you could, I don't know if we want to extend this to talk about what Kripke's theory is, or we just want to end at a cliffhanger after all of our plot twists.
Is that fair? These people have stuck with us for so long. Endured so much.
Yeah, so all right. So Kripke, all right. If you think it would be cruel to cut off here,
see, I care about y'all.
Kripke thinks that proper names are rigid designators, which is a kind of funny term, but that just means that unlike a description, like the discoverer of the incompleteness theorem, which designates different objects in different possible worlds. So in our world, it designates Gödel. In the world where the Schmidt thing was true, it designates Schmidt. So this is a, I don't know, flexible designator. I'm not sure what the contrast is for rigid, but
flaccid designator.
Yeah, flaccid designator, exactly. So Kripke thinks proper names are rigid designators. They designate the same object in every possible world, which is why it can we can say that, okay, in our world, it's not true that Homer did not write the Iliad and the Odyssey, but there are possible worlds where that is true, because when we're talking about those worlds, we're still designating Homer, the same guy as in our world, even in the world where he dies when he's 10 or he gets shivved in the dungeon or whatever we said. Shanks, sorry. I'm really forgetting all my prison terminology. So Kripke's theory of how it is that proper names come to rigidly designate the objects that they do, and how this works is he says there's some sort of initial designation. He'll sometimes say like the initial baptism, which just is like whatever event at which the name becomes attached to that individual. Which I don't know, maybe sometimes is actual baptism, but usually has something to do with parents.
That's probably where he.
Yes,
Yeah.
Got that. Yeah, but it could be whatever. I mean, it could be like you're walking home from the pet shop, like, what should we call our dog? Or
how about Lucy?
Right? How about Lucy? Or whatever. Like if somebody's it's just for some stupid philosophy example, I'm going to call this bottle of beer Bill, right? And then I refer back to an example. So Bill is, that's what just happened. I guess was the initial
baptism
of
yes. Bill.
Baptism of Bill. And then he says that our use of the name refers to the original thing as long as it's connected by the right kind of causal chain, the right kind of chain of cause and effect to that initial baptism. Why the right kind of causal chain? Oh, because there are definitely things that are causal chains connecting your use of a name to some initial baptism event that clearly don't mean that you're referring to that object. Like if instead of naming our dog Lucy, we had named her
the dog Bartholomew.
The dog Bartholomew. I guess in that case, it's
shout out to you, Francine.
Right. Or let's say Lucy had been a boy, and we had
named her the dog Bartholomew.
Well, we named her. I was thinking. Also, speaking of Francine's interest, we named her Napoleon. So we named the dog Napoleon. Then
I'm just imagining Lucy's face with the name Napoleon attached to it.
Sure. But then when somebody said made some statement about the dog, Napoleon barfed on the carpet today. Well,
that's the statement you chose.
I don't know. Napoleon played with his ball today. So when you say Napoleon played with his ball today, your use of the word Napoleon is connected by a causal chain to the general and emperor Napoleon Bonaparte, but because the fact that we picked that as a name was caused by reading about Napoleon, and that's caused by there is a causal chain going back to Napoleon's parents naming him Napoleon, but clearly neither Kripke nor anyone else would say that we were claiming that the long dead emperor of France was playing with his ball today. So that's why it's the right kind of causal chain, and trying to fill out the details is a little tricky, although that also sort of seems like come on, you know what I mean, sort of scenario.
Ben has to say that to me all the time.
You know what I mean?
He accuses me of lawyering.
Yeah, Jenn is really much more of a stereotypical philosophy PhD in her in the way that she argues about small day-to-day things. There's a lot of very very fine-grained logical parsing. But
also, not Bart, the dog Bartholomew.
In the Jeeves and Wooster stories,
Stiffy has a little Scotty, some sort of terrier, like that Wooster always refers to as the dog Bartholomew. The dog Bartholomew does not like him very much.
Right. It's a very judgmental dog. Anyway, there are now the flip side of all this is that rejecting Russell's description theory and accepting Kripke's causal theory of reference gets us out of the problems with Russell's theory that we just talked about. But what about all those original problems that led us to think that Russell's theory was pretty good?
Ben's going to solve these in the next 2 minutes.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. So this it is in a stream full of many deep and profound statements. This will be the deepest and most profound. Probably some third view must be true.
Is that a plot twist? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know if that qualifies as quite as an according to Hoyle plot twist. But but yeah, this is what makes it a problem. We were just we were just saying in the video for the ethics students earlier that generally speaking in philosophy, I mean, even though when I'm doing the stuff that I usually do on this channel and elsewhere, and bringing in philosophy for that, it's the parts of it that I'm really sure about. Libertarianism is wrong about property rights, stuff like that. But much more typically, philosophy is about problems that are complicated and messy and
as yet unsolved.
Since this is what makes them the interesting issues to talk about. I mean, this you don't walk into an ethics class and be like, hey, what do you guys think? Is torturing babies for fun morally okay or no? Or, let's get a discussion going about this. You walk in there and do whatever, the trolley problem or something, because there's a lot more room for ambiguity and people who've thought deeply about it coming to different conclusions.
And people will not look at you with a horrified expression on their faces.
Yeah, sure, that too. Similarly with this philosophy of language issues, that there's that these are complicated, messy problems, that there's tons of room for people who've thought a lot about them to disagree, since there are arguments that sound somewhat plausible that you can make for and against all of these views. But I think that there have been, I think probably we've done enough plot twists that people's minds have just been blown and patched back together and blown up again, too many times over.
Obviously, we blew the mind of the troll because he left.
Ah, sad. Yeah. Lonely troll now. No bridge to
tear
to hang out under. But well, if you watch The Good Place, they sort of did a version of that joke.
They're actually Minefield. I think it was Minefield. Somebody did a seriously I mean, nobody was actually in danger, but they did a video loop or something. They somehow made it appear as though the unwitting person was really and literally making the decision, do I pull the lever or do I not?
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. That was intense.
Yeah, that sounds intense. Also incredibly unethical. Like how is
it went through ethics boards and psychological profiles and all sorts of stuff, because they knew they were coming for some sort of experiment. So they did have psychological profiles taken and stuff like that. But it was kind of like, can you wait in here for a minute? And it was an engineer's booth, and then the engineer left, and then there was this crisis, and it was, what are you going to do?
Fair enough.
It was pretty intense.
Yeah. Much less intense version of it. I always think of it, makes me laugh. It's a 26-second video called A 2-Year-Old Solution to the Trolley Problem.
Uh-oh, Nicholas. This train is going to crash into these 5 people. Should we move the train to go this way, or should we let it go that way? Which way should the train go?
And there's a future serial killer right there, Nicholas.
I think Nicholas is just a 2-year-old. 2-year-olds enjoy things crashing into each other. All right, guys, that's it for tonight. On Sunday, for the Sunday night debate breakdown, Jean Bajalan and Adnan Hussein are going to join me to go over an old debate from the 80s, I want to say, Christopher Hitchens and Edward Said versus Bernard Lewis and Leon Weisenfeld, however you say that guy's name, talking about the Middle East. So that should be a lot of fun. So thanks everybody for sticking around and
For all the plot twists.
Yeah, sticking around through all the plot twists. I know as Dave Rubin would say, everybody's brains are in recovery mode now after all that. So much appreciated. Left is best.
Team Snoopy forever.